This is the Comics Alternative Interviews, a conversation with Gabby Schulz. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Comics Alternative Interviews. I'm Derek.
And I'm Gwen, and we're two people with PhDs talking about comics.
And on this episode, Gwen and I have a really nice time talking with Gabby Schulz. His new book, The Process of Drastically Reducing One's Expectations, came out recently from Phase 8 Publishing. But before we get to that conversation, we want to let all of you know that this episode of the Comics Alternative Interviews is brought to you by the wonderful folks at Discount Comic Book Service. Go to their website, dcbservice.com, for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. There, you're going to find all DC, Marvel, Image, and Dark Horse titles at 40% off of the cover price if you pre-order. For all of the other publishers, you'll find that those discounts are 20 to 35% off of the cover price, and every single month you're going to find some unbelievable specials. Sometimes those specials could be as much as 45% off of the cover price, sometimes 50% off cover, but many times you can find discounts that are even more impressive than that.
That is so right, Derek. I'm going to head over there today for my weekly ordering needs.
Yeah, and you know, whether you get individual issues of comics or bundles of things, you can find great discounts because DCB Service also has a variety of bundles from DC, Marvel, Valiant, and other publishers. So be sure to check out dcbservice.com. You got to go there for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. We require it if you listen to this podcast. And after you do get your comics there, please be sure to send them an email and tell them that Gwen and Derek sent you. So, you know, Gwen, as we point out toward the end of our interview with Gabby, this is a conversation that was a long time in coming.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad we had it because in addition to learning so much about Gabby's comics, actually, Gabby taught me some interesting things about the way that comic creators view themselves and inside the whole process of comics creation. So it's a really fun time to learn about Gabby's work, but also the way that he views his role as an artist.
Yeah. He also told us a little bit about his trek across the country, driving across and living in a van, which is actually why we didn't get to interview him sooner rather than later. You mentioned his views of himself, and you know, as he admits, he is self-deprecating. He is one of those creators that I think is underappreciated and flies under a lot of people's radar. I know that Jason Lutz, he's the author of the Berlin series, has said that Gabby is one of the great unsung talents of American comics. And you know, when you look at the awards and the nominations that he's received, I mean, that does tell you something. You and I were discussing on our Ignatz Award show last year that Sick was up for an Ignatz Award. It didn't get it, but it was nominated. And then his previous book, Monsters, actually won the Ignatz Award twice. It won it in 2006 as a mini comic, and then it won it in 2010 as an original story. And then Monsters also was nominated for an Eisner Award in 2010. So, you know, he's gotten a lot of recognition within the industry from other creators and from people who really know comics. But unfortunately, not a lot of people know about Gabby.
Well, hopefully this interview will change that.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go ahead and share that interview with our listeners. We're happy to have on the Comics Alternative Gabby Schulz. His new book, The Process of Drastically Reducing One's Expectations, came out from Phase 8 Publishing. Gabby, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Maybe we can start off by asking you to describe what the new book, The Process of Drastically Reducing One's Expectations, is all about.
Yeah, I should preface it with saying that I am extremely self-deprecating, so don't take anything I'm about to say without that. But it really is just a collection of diary comics that actually a lot like Sick, my other book, started as just sort of a way for me to process a really, really bad experience, a really bad time in my life, and I didn't think I would actually ever show it to people. And then I guess it's kind of a typical internet process where you start posting a couple just to, well, it started because I had a shoulder injury where I couldn't finish my last book, Sick, because I couldn't use my hand, and so I kind of panicked about not having any way to, I would just, that's it, I'm done as a cartoonist. And I guess I realized through that I didn't, that was really important to me, which I had never considered before. So, because I found myself still drawing, even though it was extremely painful. And the only thing I could draw was little diary comics every day just to sort of, feel like I was still doing something. And they were just terrible. They're definitely not something that I would, think to show people as this is what I do, or how this is the best I can do. But they kind of got momentum after a few months. And I was putting them online just to keep my website active. And, but more and more people seem to read them. And I guess when I realized people were reading them, I started putting a little bit more effort into it. And 2 years later, I had a huge chunk of these things just sort of lying around. And I thought that was going to be it. And then Alec Longstreth really liked them. He's always been a big fan of my work, which is strange because he's the nicest, most positive person I have ever met. And for some reason, he really, I guess it's a opposites attract thing. He just really likes the sewage of negativity that I bring to comics. So he wanted to make a book out of them, and he put a lot of work into it. It was really a best case scenario for me. He's like, don't worry about it. I'll do all of the pre-press Photoshop stuff. All I want to do is have it as a book, and I'll do all the work for it. You don't have to do anything except make a cover. And so, I couldn't say no to that. And it's difficult because on one hand it's well, cool, easy, but now I have to sort of justify having a book because it's out. And why would you put a book out if you didn't want to have a book of this stuff? But I don't know. I guess I don't have any perspective on it because it's so personal. It's diary, autobiographical comics. So there's that element to it of me not wanting the world to know about that, or not wanting to advertise it, that I went through this, the last 2 years of my life, which were just terrible. They're better now, but I know when I read other people's diary comics, it puts me to sleep. So I didn't want to be hypocritical, but I guess I don't have any perspective on it. But it's a great book. Everyone should buy it. I guess is what I'm supposed to say.
You were saying that, you were friends with Alec Longstreth before this project, before, he said, hey, why don't I work with you on this? And I was wondering, was it the friendship that brought you to what Longstreth does, and let's say not go through Secret Acres, who published your last couple of books?
Yeah, it wasn't really because I wasn't really looking for a publisher. I mean, I don't think Secret Acres would have been I don't think anyone would have been interested in publishing this book. I mean, I think the cool thing about it is there's just so much of it that's a nice brick of stuff to read for really cheap because it's print on demand. But Alec just asked me, and I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And he's super motivated and really got a good organizational sense and an eye for detail, and this is what he wanted to do, and I couldn't say no to him. And I don't. It's just so weird to me that he's not like if you read this book, it's just me being super miserable for 2 or 3 years of my life, and the idea of him reading it, much less publishing, is bizarre to me because his life is not like that, and his comics aren't like that at all. But he, I don't know what it is. It's really weird. But he wanted to do it, so I guess that I should be so lucky. I don't want to look a kid's horse in the mouth. But it was mostly just a side project. Like, why not? I had all this stuff laying around. It wasn't like I kind of forget that it's a book. Like it feels like sort of an accident. But it looks nice. He did a really good job on it.
Well, Gabby, one of the things that I've noticed in your writing is you have a really great way of creating a sense of place in all of your comics. And I wonder if you might want to start by talking a little bit about that, because even in Sick, which takes place in a room, I felt like I knew that room really well by the time I was done.
I guess I have a lot of different ideas about that. As an artist, because I feel like on one hand, looking back on it as an artist, somebody who's trying to make people interested in a story, I guess I should have taken some artistic license and made the room look more interesting or something. Objectively, it was a really boring room, like not much visually going on. And I think by page 100, I was like, what? Why? Why did I choose this room? Like it's really dull, like the beige walls and like it's just no decoration at all. One window, but that was, I guess originally I was like, yeah, that's the point. It's just like it was so awful that couple of weeks of my life in that room was such a perfect metaphor for it. I mean, none of it's not embellished. Like there's like that rotting corner of the ceiling was actually a hole in, like, we were on the top floor of this huge apartment complex in Flatbush, and it was literally like when it would rain, it would just pour water through it, and so it was a good setting for it to be extremely miserable, and I don't know. I guess the idea with that book was I wanted to like take a break from embellishment and artistry or craft or whatever, and I thought the only way this is going to work is and not just come off as like completely self-absorbed, which it is to not worry, not think about all that, like the design or the not get too meta or precious with it, but just like chisel it out of like, this is what happened, and then drop it, like that's because that I don't know, whatever you call that, like being real or genuine or it's like the unembellished rawness of it. Like I was drawing it, maybe still in the actual experience. I thought that was my only hope of making that transmitting that experience or the feeling of it. And I don't know if it worked, but.
Yeah, I mean, those little details are memorable, though. When you mentioned the corner, I mean, I remember the corner. I remember, like, the dirt around the light in the top of the wall. I mean, on the ceiling. Uh-huh. So it is memorable. There are these, in your illustrations, there are these little details that just really amplify, I think, the feeling or the mood or whatever.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I really like it when other cartoonists do that. I think that's all the cartoonists that I really enjoyed that's been one of the main draws for me. I mean, it's the main story, but somebody still truly to say, like taking the time to put all these little things going on. There's like 5 or 6 different comics happening in the same comic. Like a little sentient walking bottle is like bumping into somebody else and getting into a fight with them, like while she's, doing her stuff in the human world. It's so great. Like that, I feel like that's the sort of thing that really makes comics sets comics apart from other media is your sort of choose for an adventure subplots that you can get into, or just, I don't know, just to add atmosphere, I guess, or to more fully express the artist's world or internal world.
Now, did you begin Sick online on your website?
Yeah, I did. That was how that started. Was also the same as the diary comics. Is I had a really bad couple of weeks, and almost as soon as I got better, I started drawing it. And I I guess I wasn't thinking about it too much. I drew something that I thought was going to be a couple of weeks long. Like, wow, this really sucked. Like that was the point. And, but then I don't know if it's just a part of getting old or like I'm, being a wingnut or just like comics having all these fractals, sort of inherent in the medium. But I really felt like, well, it's the problem. What was the problem? Like, why was this such a traumatic experience? It wasn't just that I got sick. It was because I could have been fine if I had health insurance, if I could walk down the street to the hospital, and not had to sit in my room and feel self-pity about like, maybe I'm going to die because I don't have a job to get health insurance. And so then that extrapolates, as you're sitting there feeling, really awful and with a fever with nothing to do but think, is like, well, yeah, I don't, also, how come I don't have anyone to drive me to the hospital or kick me the money to pay for a hospital visit? That's pretty miserable, immiserating too. And blah, blah, blah. The next thing, you can really connect the dots to like a whole world of experience that is like to blame for this situation. At least like that's what I guess, I don't know if it was just dementia or me trying to make sense of the world, but that through this isolated experience. But it kind of became that, like it just sort of blew up. And so, like months later, I'm still drawing these things weekly, and it got a huge following. I think it was mainly because I started out criticizing the healthcare industry, and a lot of people link to that because, of course, there's a lot of sympathy for that. And so, yeah, it like shut down my website with bandwidth. And actually, there was a lot of drama with my website about wanting to charge me a lot of money because it had gone so far over the bandwidth for some reason, they didn't have like a cutoff. They just kept giving me bandwidth like 10 times over the limit I was supposed to have. And they wanted to bill me like thousands of dollars for it.
Wow.
And and so that was cool. I mean, all of that was like, that was the best possible way you can get billed for something. It was really flattering. But I mean, I guess that's how the internet works. Like you're just toiling in utter obscurity 1 second and the next second for no reason or thing that you can predict. At least I can't. Suddenly it's like everyone's reading it and then you're back to being obscure again, 2 weeks later. But so then it was like, oh, well, okay. I really don't think this should have been a book. Like, again, with the same thing, it's like, I really don't want to be a whiner or like a self-important bellyacre, but I guess that's my forte. People kept emailing me about like, when's it going to be a book? Like what, like getting mad at me, sort of like, why haven't you made a book out of this? Or why haven't you finished the story? Cause I wrote like, I think the website ended the story or it kind of stopped telling a story around 3/4 of the way through what ended up being the book. So there's a lot more in the book than there was on the website. So like, yeah, it's a weird dynamic. Like I don't like I should be so lucky that anyone's interested. And I kind of wanted to be like, well, you don't know what you're asking. Like, you really want me to whine that much? You really want to make this like isolated little white people problems experience so important that it has an actual paper book involved? Like, I don't know if I agree with you, but okay. Like Secret Acres is asking me like if I can do a book for him. So yeah, I would be a fool not to. And like against my better judgment, I redrew the entire thing, which was like, I think maybe almost killed me. Like that was a really bad experience. And also why my arm ended up giving up on me for a while. Cause I thought, it was just that Chinese democracy sort of scenario where you're like, I just got to tweak it a little bit more and it'll be fine. And like 10 years later, you're still in the studio. So I watercolored the whole thing because I thought the Photoshop RGB colors I was using were looking pretty tacky, and it took a long time. It was really labor intensive.
Yeah, and going back to look at the webcomic or the online original Sick, and then comparing it to the finished book that came out last year from Secret Acres. I mean, it really is a striking difference in the art. And, with your watercolors, the tones are much more muted and somber, which definitely fits the tone of your story and the ultimate messages that come out. I think that the brighter art from the online version just wouldn't have worked as well. I mean, the message would have still been there, right? You still have the punch, but I don't know if the visuals would have created almost like an aura of doom. I mean, by the time we get to the end of Sick, it oh boy, to call it somber may be an understatement.
Yeah. There's also the splash pages you can get from a book. I guess I don't know if there's any actual like both sides splash pages, but the bigger, wider sort of format, I guess, is nice to like set a mood. And you can't. I didn't really have that with my like 600 pixel wide strip. I think the thing that I do miss about books, and this was really eye opening to me, working on this, that I'm not a like comics genius or anything, so I couldn't figure out a way to make the infinite canvas thing work in a book. I mean, obviously it's it's by design, that's the whole point. It's not infinite. Paper costs money. I mean, I also, learned through bitter experience on my website that infinite canvas isn't free either. Like I can only put so many pictures on my website and have people look at them before before they're charging me thousands of dollars. So it's not exactly infinite, but it was, I think all the good things, what was really frustrating is all the good that happened in the web version were things that you scrolled down. And I love that scrolling down sort of like, that the doom that's sort of inherent in that, where it kind of reminded me of the haunted house at Disneyland where you get in the elevator and then there's the pictures on the wall. And as the elevator goes down, the pictures get longer and longer. And like this picture of a, really sedate Victorian woman becomes this woman dangling over this alligator swamp or something. And it man, that was like, I really enjoyed that. And I thought it worked really well in the book. In the website version, and there's just no way to do that in a book, unless you had some sort of accordion pop out sort of thing, which would be really pretentious. And I wish I could think of a way to reconcile that, because I think that was probably one of the best parts about the comic on the internet.
Yeah. No, we should mention this book that we've been talking about for a while, Sick, came out last year, and it was nominated for an Ignatz Award under the graphic novel category. And in fact, Gwen and I, we did an episode together last year where we looked at the Ignatz nominees, and we even discussed Sick.
Yeah, wow, thanks. Yeah, there's one thing, Gabby, that I kind of want to ask you, because a few minutes ago you were talking about how, you were saying, how can someone want to listen to this or read this comic about this one guy's issues? But it seems to me your comics are incredibly topical. Last night I was rereading them, and I was telling Derek in the background, they'd broken in to talk about the bombing in Syria. And I was reading through your comics again. And I was saying to Derek, it's like that scene in Airplane where Lloyd Bridges says, I picked the wrong day to give up smoking. It was like, I picked the wrong day to reread Gabby's comics away. I mean, or the right day, because the mood that I was feeling off of that, and then the things that you were hitting on in Sick. I mean, it goes well beyond your sick bed into a commentary on, I think, our whole society, and it was absolutely amazing. So there is a lot of topicality in what you're doing.
Yeah, the silver lining of the Trump presidency, I guess, is that like my comics, suddenly people are like, oh, okay, I see what you're going for. Like, I think maybe if I had waited just 6 months to publish that book, it would have made a lot more sense, it's amazing that how, like, I guess I came up drawing comics in the, I remember I was a political cartoonist right when Bush was like during the election in 1999, and I was drawing these comics that were like, I just like, nobody saw that coming. Everyone was like, ha, George W. Bush, what an idiot. Wow, he's actually trying to run for president. This guy's going to get laughed off of the political sphere. And then like as November got closer and closer, people were like, "You're kidding me, really? This is actually going to happen." And it happened for 8 years. And I felt like there's this complacency in the Clinton era that was revisited in the Obama era, where people just thought, I mean, everything is fine. Nobody wants to think about politics and how horrible things are. So I think in some ways it's, like people like me who are going around kvetching about everything constantly, politically, no one wants to hear it when I don't know, when things seem perfect because one person in the White House seems to be a nice person, even though like God knows it's not that simple. But like the other panic that people are feeling over Trump, justifiably so, because it's a utter nightmare, is I feel like people they're ready to listen to people like me who are just like, the sky is falling. I mean, here's the proof. Like, I don't know what more I could say. Maybe people should be angrier. Like maybe we shouldn't just be assuming that things are going to work out for the best. People, I felt like I spent the last 8 years just sort of, I don't know, being like not talking to people, because I've spent a lot of time on the internet. I guess like I was on Twitter for a while, just like alienating the entire world with my ideas about, just because Obama's in office doesn't mean that, like drone strikes it doesn't mean that's not still horrible. How come, I don't know, there's all these horrible things going on that nobody's paying attention to because I don't know, I don't know what it is. Like the economy's not even good like it was in the Clinton era. It's just sort of like cult of personality or something that makes people just complacent.
Well, you
I also picked the wrong.
No, go ahead.
I just feel like talking to cartoonists like that has been a constant source of frustration for me. I really picked the wrong medium to be politically engaged in. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to have political conversations in a mostly declares itself as apolitical or
mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that Gwen brought up is the topicality of Sick, and you were framing it earlier as Gabby kvetching, your middle class white guy problems. But one of the things you do not only in Sick, you do this in Monsters and to a large degree in your shorter strips as well, is that you use the personal, usually you as the personal, as a springboard for an exploration or discussion into larger topics, usually political, right? And not just specifically in the moment political, right? Where, we're dealing with Trump at the moment. I mean, you're concerned with larger cultural issues. So for instance, how has our insatiable need to consume affected not just the planet, but the way that we interact with one another in a larger way, right? Regardless of who's in office, regardless of the, the political crisis du jour.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's all you can do really, right? I mean, I guess every artist is doing that. What's frustrating to me is that most people don't either know it or cop to it. The personal is always political, and that every time you draw a comic that's just like, I went to get ice cream today and then saw a movie and watched a basketball game and then went to bed. I mean, that's a political statement. And if that, especially if that every day of your diary comic is like that, eventually you got to ask yourself, what is your place in this larger world? What do you represent? And if you really care that little about anything but your own comfort, I feel like that's a really bold political statement, and one that the rest of the world looks at, and they're definitely looking at that as political. And it's I don't know. That's a pretty tame example, but I feel like a lot of people just don't realize that their choices matter, or that privilege is blind to its own nature. Like we can't really, as Americans in a really insulated bubble, don't really realize how that bubble is insulated. And I think if you take a couple seconds to read the news and look around the world and wonder how things got to be the way they are, which for us is wonderful, as soon as you notice that it's being kept wonderful by some pretty ugly stuff, it kind of starts to leave a bitter taste in your mouth. And then you have to ask yourself, if I'm like, is my convenience more important than other people's suffering? Do I really need this much comfort at this price? I mean, is like Gitmo a thing that I'm able to be okay with in exchange for my frozen yogurt pops, or whatever, like my $2.50 gas, all that stuff. The more you think about it, the more it just snowballs into like the extreme frustration with a lot of stuff that I feel like is pretty huge. And I feel like, I'm running around like Omega Man, sort of like just screaming about stuff that no one wants to hear, because like we're all so comfortable that our comfort depends on not thinking about that stuff. And so yeah, I mean, I guess like it's once you get into that stuff, it's hard to read other comics and see people not caring about it, and not see that as a political statement that is really, awful. And I think I know that I'm complicit in that, and that I'm sitting here sipping my tea with nice and warm and free of war. Like I haven't heard any drones flying overhead today, and I'm extremely thankful for that. And but at the same time, I also feel like it's my responsibility to, like, because of all this privilege. Like I think anyone who's privileged enough to have as a concern, like, how do I draw? Like other than like, how do I eat today? How dare you not use that privilege in a way that at least tries to address real serious problems, or at least make other people's lives better. I mean, it's fine to talk about like happy animal escapism, like that stuff has its function too, I guess. But I mean, I feel like there's a difference between indulging in that and then having a perspective on it, which brings it to a level that actual adults can get something out of, and stuff that's just straight up like, I don't need to be an adult because I'm rich. Like that's what really frustrates me. And what I feel like I'm going to die with the world being like, good luck with that, Gabby. We'll be over here making tons of money. But I think it's worth it. Like, I don't want to, I can't, like I screen test or whatever, like a test for an animated show a few years ago. And that was actually right around when the real life sick stuff happened. And that was, man, like everyone, I feel like comics everyone's moving to LA now to work in illustration or to work in animation, and that industry is really grim. Like it's really I don't know, just that attitude of like comics, cartoons are all we need out of life is like friendship and like just be happy, and like I'm like, oh, makes me want to vomit. Like all that. I mean, it's just too much. Like I want there to be a return to adults addressing adult actual, like the problems of the world, because people like Donald Trump and Bannon are, I mean, I feel like they look at all that and people like are, with like self-care is activism, and they're just like, absolutely, yes, please hold a sign and say how bad we are and then go home. And that's all you do. That's like excellent. I love that. Because they can do whatever they want, because those people are definitely thinking about adult real life concerns, and they're thinking about it in the context of getting what they want at the expense of the entire rest of the world. And if there's no one disputing it. There's just the present situation we have. Artists, I don't see very many artists that are doing anything to really pose a legitimate threat to that. And I mean, I don't know if art can. But I mean, I feel like I've looked at artists in the past, like Robert Cobb and Art Young, and Dr. Seuss for a while, that were, I mean, they are like George Grosz or Otto Dix, like people who knew what was at stake with art and what was at stake with their engagement in the political world. And it's not a game, like it wasn't a game to them, because they were involved in real actual war, and they saw the price. I mean, this morning I woke up after, like reading about Syria, and just like, that's really like where we're headed. Like for real. I mean, it really seems like history repeating itself in a really, the worst way that, oh man, And it's time, it's like, Adventure Time is like great, wonderful. Everyone's getting paid. Kids love it. The merch sells well, but oh my God, is there any space in society for any sort of discussion beyond like friendship is magic,
It's interesting you say that, because I just finished teaching Nathan Hale's Treacherous Tales, Treaties, Trenches, Mud, and Blood, which is his children's comic on World War I. And I just taught it to my undergrads, and all of them were blown away by this book. In a lot of ways, it's interesting because, as you've been saying, adult conversation. A lot of the comics creators who are having these conversations are writing for children, which is really kind of, it's really kind of interesting when you think about why that is. And I don't want to go off on a tangent on that, but, it is true that a lot of, maybe it's also just thinking about who your audience is. If you really want kids to begin to get a little woke, showing, then the topics you choose, can be really significant. But I totally get what you're saying about that, art is separate. Let's just have a good time tonight. Yeah, that stuff's going on somewhere else. And that's the thing about your comics that are so awesome, though, because even though you're talking about, like, at a very personal level, some of the things that are directly happening to you, the way that you're able to broaden that conversation out, put your own situation into perspective, and ask us to sort of use it as a jumping pad to think about other things is really powerful.
Yeah, I hope. Thanks. That's what I'm trying to do. I would give anything to have the chops of someone like, Paul Pope or someone who could actually draw to I think if I had that ability, that I could really do a lot more with that. But I also feel like there's a really strong disconnect between, and this is what makes comics so great, is there's this tension between writing and drawing. And I think drawing is inherently escapist. Drawing is an attempt to, it's not easy to learn how to draw. It's super, super hard. It's a way of thinking that you need to like hammer into your brain that, originally it doesn't want to do. Drawing is inherently escapist because you want to create a world that doesn't exist. And you want to see a world that you imagine in your mind as real. And the most real you can make that, if you don't want to be a film director, is drawing it out and making it tangible or, visible to other people. But meanwhile, writing, I feel like, is the opposite. Writing is more about, you can't be a writer without understanding people and immersing yourself in different social situations, different economic situations, like having the broadest experience with human endeavor as possible. And gross, I think most people who draw are introverts. Want nothing to do with that. They want to be holed up, in the room drawing, and that, which is a refutation of reality. And I think the reason comics struggle so much with being, why they're so hard to do, but also they have this like special quality to them is that tension between like the extroversion and the introversion. And it takes a very, very special person to be able to do both of those things, because it's not easy to, I don't want to be around people. I also feel like I want to understand life. And I think that's what makes, someone attracted to cartooning in a way, rather than just painting. I'm sure there's qualities of that in all visual art, but I feel like there's also, I don't know, like, and I'm sure that I was using adult as sort of a placeholder for, I don't know what, things that actually affect our lives. But I think also there's plenty of children's artists or children's book artists, especially in the mid 20th century, that were really, really hardcore and said some really powerful things about, adults, or like how war works, or I don't know, like Tommy Unger and Where the Wild Things Are was pretty. I felt like that was pretty radical for. If you're like 7 years old and reading that, it's kind of mind blowing for what it's saying about society. So yeah, I get what you're saying about artists that draw for children. I think a lot of people that draw, like Tommy Unger, was definitely like that sort of subversive quality of drawing for children, where children, like, it's sort of revolutionary to think of childhood as not just like happy and fun and like everything's great. Because I'm definitely, from my personal experience, but I'm sure most people's personal experience, it's not that at all. It's constant terror. It's dangerous.
Absolutely.
And like, I think whenever you're able to get past all the senses and all the TTAs and all the, perfectly well-meaning parents, like, I don't know if I can't speak as a parent. I know it would be really hard to, territory to, like, have to actually expose my kids to a book like that was, I don't know, like super scary or something. Cause I also remember having nightmares for months after seeing like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And so like that must have been exhausting for my parents. Like I couldn't sleep alone, or like I would be screaming every night. So like you want to get your sleep too. You can't have your kid be messed up in the head because of some children's book they read that was hella woke. But I think if you can get past all that to express childhood in a way that resonates with children as they're actually going through it, and you can save a life that way. Like kids really need that. Mm-hmm. Adults really need it too, but there's not a lot of people doing that anymore because there's just no money in it. I mean, there's no people who want to publish that, and there's certainly any parents who want to give their kid a book like that. I don't know why you would.
Well, we've been talking about the political, both the specific and the political in the larger sense nature of your comics. At the same time, they're extremely personal, especially on the level of self-revelation. As we were mentioning in Sick, you start off from a point where you're telling us about, in terms of your health and also psychological well-being, a very low point in your life, and you've also mentioned that you tend to be self-deprecating. I think that the kind of exposure you do in your earlier book, Monsters, takes quite a bit of courage. And for our listeners who aren't familiar with Monsters, I mean, it's the story of herpes.
Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate the kind words. But Monsters I drew at a time when I didn't consider myself a cartoonist, and I guess I feel like I'm trying not to at all because it's just too hard to be honest, at least for me. But Monsters I was drawing when I was living in a truck, and I just quit a job working at actually the job that I guess I draw in the book of like in a co-op deli. And drawing was just something I like to do. It was fun. And Monsters but I drew the first couple of mini comics of it, which was sort of like the first 40 pages of action in the book. And it was kind of the same thing as Sick. It was like, well, I guess I'll probably give this, like I didn't know how to sell comics. This was like 2000, maybe 2003. And so there wasn't like a huge internet or like infrastructure. I think I wasn't even using the internet at the time. So I was still living in the 90s thinking you go to cafes and you set up your little stand and sell 5 copies of a comic book. And that's how comics work. And so I did that, I think, and people seemed to really like it. And somehow it turned into me getting a fellowship at the Center for Cartoon Studies. And that turned into Secret Acres. Secret Acres was just starting around the same time, and then they came up there and saw that book, or saw my minis and wanted to publish a whole book of it. So it was kind of the same thing. It was like, whoops, I guess I have to draw a whole book now. And so that, I think that was, if I had really thought about what I was doing, I mean, I really thought I was going to stay anonymous. Like I was just going to draw this book. No one was going to know it was me. And that would be done. I would get it off my chest because it was, I had a really bad experience with being in a relationship with somebody, and then both of us finding out we had herpes, and it ruined the relationship, and that kind of put me on this journey of discovery of STIs and what that was about and what that meant for me. And I think that was a perfect example of like, if you tell your own story, it's going to help a lot of other people navigate their own problems with it. And, it's like, I mean, as far as like problems go, it's pretty minor. I mean, herpes is whatever. It's worst things can happen to somebody. But at the same time, it's the social stigma of it and the nature of it where, like it kind of ruins relationships, or like it ruins your sex life because you have to tell people and they think it's gross and like they don't want to get it. that all stuff can be pretty hard to navigate or pretty hard to deal with. I definitely contemplated suicide at some point over it, just because a lot of things contributed to it at once. It was bad for me personally, but other people, I've gotten a lot of emails from people who seem pretty, like they were like saying the same thing. Like, I don't see myself ever being like anyone ever loving me again. I really just don't want I want to end it already. Like, what do I do? And that's, like, so that was kind of great. I mean, it was great to have some use in the world. Like, other people were going through the same thing, and this book helped them figure out that it wasn't the end of the world. But at the same time, I don't know. It's been really humiliating, actually. Like, people, it's amazing what people take away from that book. Like, I thought what they were going to take away, what I wanted people to take away from that book is everyone has herpes. I mean, statistically, there's all these fascinating things about STIs like herpes where the CDC won't even talk about it besides saying wear a condom, good luck. Even condoms don't really protect you. Because they're like, it's not life-threatening, and except for very rare cases, like if you get it as you're being born, or like how you get like it in your eye and you can go blind, which is really rare. But like, so like, why? Like, we got bigger problems, like to deal with in the herpes, and it's like you can't cure it. There's no cure for it. I mean, so why are we talking about it? Let's talk about something else that that actually is a problem. Like, everyone just get over it. Like, you get a skin rash every now and then, but like, I mean, and then saying that, it's just genital herpes is the gross thing is also kind of weird, because it's not. There's several different kinds of related herpes strains. Some of them are, like thrush, or not, is that right? Like small. God, I'm getting all mixed up. It's been a while since I thought about this stuff.
Chickenpox and shingles.
Chickenpox.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, shingles. All that stuff is the same thing, but it's like no one cares because it's not. It doesn't have to do with sex. So, I don't know. That's another thing where it was like, I started out as a really simple topic and turned into this huge thing that had to do with like, no, it's not about herpes. It's about our, especially Americans' puritanical views of sex and why we can't get over it and talk about it. So, I mean, dealing with all that, I thought people would follow me there and be like, yeah, we are puritanical about sex. It's not about herpes. Everyone has herpes. But all everyone got to it was like, so you don't have herpes, right? like, oh man, like, or like being called the herpes guy. Like, I've definitely gotten, like the herpes guy. Yeah, like as like like publicly, like on a microphone type thing. Like, and I get it. Like, they assume that because I drew a whole book about it, I should think it's funny and embrace it. But I was kind of hoping that after 200 pages of me showing how miserable I was about it, that people would be like, oh yeah, it looks like you're pretty miserable about it. We shouldn't bring it up. Like, we shouldn't make fun of it because everyone seems to be making fun of you about it. But that's not what happened. And I think it's amazing. Like, I really want to read that book and be like, oh, shit, I have herpes too. Probably. I mean, statistically, everyone has herpes, even if it's, oral, genital, whatever. Gladiatorum, or like that weird wrestler strain that you get on your back from wrestling. And so like, I should check myself before I make a herpes joke, but that nobody kind of went with it. It's really weird. Like, no one has any sort of new perspective. They read that book and they're like, damn, Gabby sure is messed up in the head. He sure worries about a lot. And like, oh well, the drawings are nice, and the end. So that part was really frustrating, and I feel like I kind of wish I had drawn in some ways. Like, there's probably other things I could have drawn, but at the same time, I guess this isn't really up to me. It was something that I felt compelled to do, and it felt good to get it off my back. And part of the reason I drew it was just because like, part of the book is me denying to myself really the reality of having herpes and having sex with someone and being like, oh well, she probably won't get it. I hope, because, and if she doesn't, cool, because then I don't have to talk about it. But if she does, oh, awkward, because then I have to be like, yeah, by the way, I gave it to you. And I can feel how that's like what a lot of people do. That's what most people probably do, even though they don't want to admit it, and that's how the virus transmits, which is freaking genius. but I feel like if I drew that book, I wouldn't have that choice because I would be the herpes guy. Like everyone would know already. So I wouldn't have to have that conversation anymore. I could just be like, yep, you know the drill. Read this book.
I don't know. Gabby, when I was reading it, one of the things that struck me was it was a commentary on shame in Western culture surrounding sexuality. Because if we weren't living in a culture that made every single thing we do seem shameful, then those conversations would come really naturally. In fact, what I found most comforting about the comic was when you gave life to the virus itself and sort of let it sort of talk too about what it would. He's just trying to get by, and find a host. So there are ways that there's a lot going on in that comic, I think. And one of it is certain. One thing to me was a commentary on shame itself.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. That's kind of what I was going for. I mean, that's kind of what I found out through drawing the book, I guess, is because I did this incredible amount of research on the book. Like I interviewed people who were actually like on the board of like people that you talk to from the CDC, if you're, the official people who know about herpes, who are like, just, I don't know, weirdly kind enough to want to talk to me about it. I read, every known book about it, even though there wasn't actually that much. There was one sort of book for lay people on it that had just come out, like as I was drawing the book, and I was writing back and forth with the author of that book for a while, whose name I can't remember now, but she was really helpful. And where was I going with this?
Is this that book, The Good News About the Bad News, Herpes, Everything You Need to Know?
Yeah. That book was, I mean, it's weird that there wasn't a book like that before. I guess that's kind of another reason why I thought I wanted to crank out the whole book of monsters is like, why I went through so much hell dealing with such a stupid little non-disease. I mean, I don't even have symptoms as far as I know. So which is how I ended up infecting someone else. But like, it still was a really horrible experience. And it's changed my life for the worse. But if I had grown up thinking that, okay, oral and genital herpes aren't necessarily this different things. And the reason we think they are is because maybe at one point the strains were so different that they couldn't mix, but now they're not. And also I think the main reason we think that is because we want to believe that people who have sex are dirty whores and that people who have mouth ulcers are fine. And the only reason we think that is because you can see mouth ulcers when you go to work in the morning. And like Jim in accounting has a bunch of sores on his mouth. There's no way around that. That dude had something went down there. And it's whatever. He used the wrong toothbrush or something. Perfect explanation. Fine. Like, thank God we don't have to talk about sex. But if Jim gave someone a blowjob, then good Lord, what to do? What do we do? We have to talk about sex now. And it's just like, it's so, that's another thing that's, it's just so needlessly frustrating. But it's the people with the privilege of not having had to gone through that experience what's in it for them? What's in it for them to read 8 books about herpes to, just in case, or to take a blood test to find out if they have it? Because their life's going really good as it is. They don't, they can kiss whoever they want, and they can put their mouths anywhere on another person and not think about it, and enjoy another beautiful day of normalcy. But that, I guess that was the really fascinating thing about writing a book about it is or going through that experience is how life kind of, there's just constantly this lurking sort of this other world that we don't see of people who are going through shit that maybe one day we will. I mean, I think that, with viruses, that's definitely true. That they're all around us. Virus and bacteria and other parasites are just waiting to infect us. And I think we're all going through our versions of that, but it also kind of seems like a precursor to death, which is, definitely coming for us at some point. But how wonderful life can be if we just don't think about that. But I think at the same time, it's, sometimes it's good to think about that. It's good to think about death for various reasons. I don't know, how your kids are going to be, provided for, or how you're going to deal with it, what life means because it's finite. I mean, it's really easy to think of life as infinite, and that's not a very good way to go about life. And like, I think stuff like disease is a sort of a nice practice run for that, because like, sure, I can't have unprotected sex anymore, but like the reason I got a disease is because I was having unprotected sex. So like, I guess none of us can have unprotected sex. Some of us are just doing it anyway because we have the blissful privilege of ignorance and or amazing immune systems or something. So like, it's wisdom, but at a price. It's just like, good luck convincing anybody that that's how you should go through life, looking for every possible bad thing to happen and preparing for it, because I don't know, that's not too fun.
Now, you wrote Monsters under the name Ken Dahl. So I wonder if you can tell us a bit about your use of names in your comic, because now you're publishing under Gabby Schulz, earlier under Ken Dahl. What's the reasoning behind that?
I used the name Ken Dahl for a while. It's like a joke, like, Barbie and Ken. Ever since I was drawing political cartoons in the 90s in Honolulu, where I'm from, I had a little spot in a weekly paper there. And I haven't really always had the best relationship with what family I have. And I kind of didn't want them to, and also in Hawaii, everyone's really nice. Like, people, it's a really small, like, community. I mean, it's an island, so like, people know about your business. And if I'm going to be publishing something publicly, I kind of wanted to separate it from my personal life. And I guess Monsters was just an extension of that. Like, and I actually got there's some people that I had been really close to that will hate me forever because of their depictions in that book. And fair enough, I get it, but I guess at the time I thought that would be enough, just if I changed the name. I guess I didn't really see it coming. I never thought I would be, like, giving an interview about it. I never thought that I didn't think it would win 2 Ignazes and get nominated for an Eisner and like win an Expo Scene Award. Or that was Welcome to the Dollhouse. But that was all super flattering and super unexpected, and probably another function of my self-deprecation that I can't prepare for those sorts of things. But I guess, I thought I would just sort of send it out into the world, and then no one would know it was me in my real life, and then I could be done with it. And in retrospect, that's pretty unrealistic. Like, it doesn't work that way, especially with the internet. Like, people will figure it out. And it's nice. It's nice to give an interview.
Yeah, and it's funny because if people did look up the name Ken Dahl, I mean, they'll find some of your stuff. Welcome to the Dollhouse and then Monsters. But there's also another author whose name is Ken Dahl, and it's curious because if they see the title of some of his works, like What is God and How Does It Work, and Honesty, The Final Frontier, kind of a different author than the author of Welcome to the Dollhouse.
I love the internet for that reason. And that poor guy has probably, he knows everything about me in my life. He's Googled me so much, just fuming the fact that I'm taking his away from his good Christian books. And like, but there's also there was an R&B or pop artist for a while on YouTube with the name Ken Dahl. And for a while we would just be like, hey, what's up on Twitter? That was it. Just sort of like a nod. And, I'm more than happy to give him the name. Like, it was kind of a silly name anyway. To be honest, I just got tired of people calling me Ken. It just got weird after a minute. But yeah, that names are strange, and people get angry when they find out that the name you're using isn't the name that they knew you as, or I don't know. It's weird.
Well,
I do like secret identity.
Yeah. I'm glad we're doing this interview when we are now, because it gives us the opportunity, as we did at the first part of the interview, to discuss your new book through Phase 8 Publishing. But maybe we should tell our listeners that we had planned on doing this interview last year, not that long after the publication of Sick. but you weren't available because you were going on, do we call it a trek or an odyssey across country? And so I was wondering if you could tell me and Gwen about how that journey turned out.
Oh, it turned out great. I really think I'm really suited to the van life. In the middle of nowhere, by myself, and traveling is great. I was itching to get out of Chicago. I had moved to Chicago to take a job. I basically accidentally got a job because I did a Skype interview at Quimby's from Iowa City after I had injured my arm, couldn't draw anymore, so I couldn't make money through commissions and needed to pay rent, didn't know where the rent was going to come from, and it was a choice between a falafel hut in Iowa City and a bookstore that I really enjoyed and admired in Chicago, where that city turned out to be a really, 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 really hard city to live in for multiple reasons. And so that's kind of where those diary comics came from. Most of them are just me being, I was strangely more miserable than I wasn't sick. I thought my life was over. Like I couldn't draw and do all these. I had all these dreams about the next books I wanted to do, and those were gone now. It's like, middle-aged sad sack sort of dad stuff where what is life worth if I can't do what I want and I have all these limitations? And so I was just drinking a whole lot, waiting around to die. And as I worked at it, I really actually enjoyed working at a bookstore for minimum wage. It was a nice life. But it was just really dull. I could just feel myself just like I would go to work, I would go to the bar, I would go home, and then repeat for day after day after day. And there's just no hope involved. And I was living in this neighborhood that was really grim. There was like mega gang activity, which sounds corny, but it's in Chicago. It's actually true. Like there's gang warfare like every day in Western and Southern Chicago. Like the Chicago Tribune has an interactive map of all the different gangs and like where the territories are, which is like, it's so cynical. Like it's almost like a spectator sport there because there's just no public funding. Like Rahm Emanuel has shut down all the schools. So there's just nothing else for kids to do. And it's super expensive to live there. And yet there's no jobs. So yeah, I mean, like there's like, I just thought it was a matter of time before I got shot. Like my roommate's windshield got shut out in a drive-by while she was walking back from the corner store. There's all these stories on the crib about people getting shot in their basements just for no reason by accident, for like crossfire. It's a really grim place to live if you want to pay $300 a month for rent. So like that compared, as soon as I had enough money saved up, I on January 1st, 2016, I was like, I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to save all the money I can and try to get out of here because this is like, I'm going to die here. And so I think it's really good to get into a van after that. And ironically, the plan was to never be in another winter again, like a northern winter. I didn't ever want to see snow or ice. I wanted to go straight to the West Coast. And like, I had gotten really into mushroom hunting since I'd been in Iowa City. So I was really eager to get to this promised land of where all the cool mushrooms were in Oregon. That sounded like the dream, or like it's a typical middle-aged dream of like, well, I don't ask for much. All I want is just to putter around in the forest and look for mushrooms and other stuff and be happy. And so the money runs out, and so I drove through the Midwest and really, I guess I thought I would stay on the West Coast, but that's not actually how it turned out. But for a while it was, it's, I think nature is still really hammered into me in Chicago, which is a place without much nature. The nature that they did have, I just really, I found it to be really therapeutic. And, I think it's really good to get out of the city as much as possible and to cling to whatever nature we have as while it's here. The irony of that being the one huge forest that I was able to get to without a car in Chicago, where I would go every weekend to hunt mushrooms that I would, like edible mushrooms, like chicken of the woods, hen of the woods type stuff, is like this is what really got me into wanting to leave Chicago is I found out that park, and I always wondered why it was the only huge chunk of green in the entire Chicagoland area, because it's like famous for sprawl and overdevelopment, is that park is where they buried the world's first nuclear reactor.
Oh my
they
gosh.
did a terrible job. Yeah. And I mean, not like, they did not, this is like the first ones. They didn't really plan for like how to store it effectively. They basically just put a tarp over it and covered it in dirt and called it a day. And I mean, there's not even any really marker for it. It's just sort of like, it's got a different name the park has a different name than it originally did. And, it's kind of literally swept under the rug and metaphorically, like, and so I was eating those mushrooms. Like I did find a lot of deformed, weird looking stuff for 2 years. And I was just the final indignity, like this one place I would come to be happy. And it turns out to be a nuclear waste dump. Oh my God. This is like the most Chicago thing. That I guess was a big inspiration for wanting to get out of the city.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I follow you on Instagram, and as you were making your trek, I would see some of your drawings that you would make along the way, and many of them were nature drawings.
I really become kind of a huge hippie since Chicago. I really just, I mean, I was going there already, but man, I sure do feel like I don't ever want to be in a city again. It's and especially because I haven't owned a car for so long. So I think the only 2 times I did was when I was living in them. And it is amazing how much of cool stuff you can do when you have a car. Like you can go anywhere you want. So yeah, I got to go to national park or camping for the first time and I guess pretty much ever. And there's some beautiful, beautiful stuff out there. I mean, all over the place. And it was really incredible to be out in the middle of nowhere by yourself, just because you wanted to, like in, I don't know. I don't know why this, I don't know how relevant this is to anyone listening to this podcast. Nature is cool. I guess that's all I'm trying to say in that. There's not really much to say about it.
Okay, so this new book came out back in February. The process of drastically reducing one's expectations. And what do you have a larger project that you're working on now, or at least something that you're thinking about in the early formulation stages?
Yeah, I've got a lot of stuff. I don't know. It's hard for me to say because there's been a lot of stuff over the years that I thought this would make a good book, and like for whatever reason, I just hammer away at it, and I don't feel like it's not just it doesn't get finished. And the stuff that does get finished is stuff like Monsters and Sick, which are just like I never, if I I had my choice, would want to finish those books. But so I guess what I want to finish is a book about a non-autobiographical book that I've been working on for years about a sort of a based on a leper colony at Kalaupapa on Molokai, but in a sort of science fiction horror, body horror sort of thing, like based in the time that was happening in the late 1800s. But Lord knows when that's going to get finished. But that's sort of a lifetime project. I've also got a bunch of smaller strips that I've been working on since I moved into the van about just like trying to draw situations that I see happening around me without commenting on them too much as a way of and those are sort of accumulating, and I'll probably end up making a book out of those eventually.
And how many of those that you work on, some of those short strips, do you put up on your website, which our listeners can find at gabbysplayhouse.com? Yeah,
I haven't really been putting stuff up there because I don't know, like after Instagram, I feel like I don't know many people who have blogs that they update anymore. I feel like that's kind of becoming, because of Facebook, an obsolete concept. So I haven't been publishing any of them or putting them online. Mostly just because it's hard to find a reason for. Instagram is great, and I get I get my social media fixed through that, and outside of that, it feels like it's just a lot of work for not a lot of payback. But to like actually have a site that you update constantly and like check your hits to see if people are looking at it. Yeah, if anyone has any advice about how to cure myself of that notion, I'd love to hear it. But I think I guess that's the problem with Instagram is it's hard to put like anything more than one page on. But it seems kind of weird to put a multiple page comic on there. So I don't really have an outlet for all this stuff. I guess I don't know. I might redo my site, or I might just hold on to them until I make a book out of them. It's to be honest, guys, it's really hard to think about all this stuff too long term, because right now things seem so grim in the real world that I wonder if it's hard. It's just hard to plan too much. Like I don't know what the life's going to be like in a few years. I feel like I got to start thinking about my own personal, immediate survival and how that's going to end up. So think like I don't know. It's without being too grim about it. It's really I need to do some maintenance on my own shit and see, like, make sure I don't end up just being a guy living in a van on the side of the road when we return to outright fascism in America.
And on that up note, yeah. No, in all seriousness, Gabby, we want to thank you for being on the Comics Alternative. This conversation's been a long time in coming. Gwen and I have wanted to talk with you for a while, and I'm glad we were able to finally arrange that.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Gabby, this was really great. Thank you. You are such a smart guy. It's wonderful to listen to you talk about your ideas and your work.
Oh, I'm just old.
It's all right. You're smart.
Thanks. That's nice to hear from someone with a PhD.
Hey.
Thank you.
Well, Derek, I so enjoyed talking with Gabby today. He is both engaging and just so smart. I feel like I've learned not only a lot about his comics, but also about comics in general.
Yeah, he did tell us a lot about his own process. And I think to me, one of the big takeaways was his views on, if we want to call it, the responsibility of the artist, and not just in current Trump times, but in all times, right? Trying to take the personal and make it political is something that, we do as a matter of course, or we should do as a matter of course, and not just escape in our own little, perhaps, autobiographical comics bubble.
Right, absolutely. And not only that, he pointed out how important it is to do that even when times seem to be going well, because to put it into perspective, times are going well for some people, but they're not going well for others. And I think he's done a really nice job in his comics of asking us to really think about ourselves and our own imprint on the planet and the choices that we're making, whether we're artists or not, about how we live in this world.
That's right. So yeah, our listeners should definitely check out his latest diary comic collection, The Process of Drastically Reducing One's Expectations, and that's published through Phase 8 Publishing. But also they can check out the earlier books that we were discussing on the show, Sick and Monsters, and those were both by Secret Acres. And our listeners can find those books at a really good price at Amazon.com. And if you go to our website, comicsalternative.com, click on the Amazon banner, then it'll take you right over to Amazon. You can get Gabby's books, and by doing it that way, you throw a few cents to the Comics Alternative. So that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you can also find great comics at the website of our sponsor, which is Discount Comic Book Service. Be sure to check out dcbservice.com. They will take care of all of your comics pre-ordering needs. And after you do get your comics there, get in touch with us and let us know what you thought about our conversation with Gabby Schulz. If you go to our website, comicsalternative.com, you'll find that you can leave us a voice message online via SpeakPipe. Or you can call us the old-fashioned way by picking up the phone and dialing 4153-COMICS. That's 415-326-6427.
You can contact us by email at twoguyes@comicsalternative.com. That's TWO guys@comicsalternative.com. Or you can get in touch with us individually. I'm Gwen at comicsalternative.com. And Derek, how can people get in touch with you?
At Derek at comicsalternative.com. You can also find us all over social media, such as on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, Google+, Goodreads, Pinterest, and YouTube. You can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher. You can also find us on TuneIn, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, and on Google Play Music. But you can find every single one of our podcast episodes, as well as the reviews and comics-related commentary that we post on our blog, simply by going to our website, comicsalternative.com.
That's right. Well, Derek, this has been a great conversation today. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, and we want to thank Gabby again for talking with us. And we have more interviews lined up in the coming days, so check back for those. Until then, I'm Derek.
And I'm Gwen. See you soon.